should make. And the point that we should make here is, how does this affect us? And how it should affect us is we should be very, very proactive in encouraging our citizens to mitigate their property.
And, yeah, yes, and they're doing it.
I mean, we should be doing mailers, we should be doing a bunch of stuff. And the reason for this, and again, Justin's going to agree with me, that, these Ponderosa stands, these Jack Pine stands have been mismanaged for the last 60 years. We got very good at putting fires out, and they are supposed to burn every 5 years.
Well, and Justin, you correct me, but this is where, so some people think these mitigations are just beyond cost, but isn't Wendy pursuing an $8 million grant
Yes.
for fire,
Yep.
for fire mitigation? Maybe there's some flood in there?
Yes.
To help people on their ranches to do this type of stuff?
Yep, and once we get to that grant, we will be putting out the mailers and that, cause,
And I think we should,
and there's also gonna be an increased, we're gonna see more prescribed fires.
Yes.
State is now starting to allow them. Obviously, the feds have been doing them for quite a few years now in our county. They're planning on doing another burn on horse thief this year in that mitigation area. They just burned all the slash piles on Monday that were up there. So, and then with that, we'll be able to, with the new grant, we'll be doing some in conjunction and doing some actual burning
and we got this really cool test, and you guys didn't see this, but, so the Wilson fire burned the same year as the Dahl fire. It was late that fall.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
a year or 2 years ago, we had another fire in the Wilson burn. And it was really interesting, because it's a Jack Pine stand that had burned 5-6 years earlier. And it did exactly what it's supposed to do in that country. It just skunked along, it never got up any of the trees. The Jack Pine is meant to burn, or Ponderosa pine, as it burns up the trunk, you look at that bark, how it's got that flaky bark on it, it's got pitch in it. And when that pitch gets hot, it pops, and it pops the fire off the bark. So you see all these big trees that have burn marks 4 or 5 feet up, but the burn doesn't go any higher than that.
Right.
It's the ladder fuels that it needs to be mitigated that causes these
Yep.
crowning fires. Because
Crowning
when it
fires.
gets into the crowning fires in these Jack Pines, it's unbelievable how fast it can move.
It's diesel.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's jet fuel.
Yep, solid state fuel is what it is. Well, and usually they do what they call a staff ride, I think every year. Next time that they have it up here, I'll make sure you guys know. So down there on Raider Road, there's a perfect example of mitigation. So the state's been down there on the state section, they cut it out, they burned it out. And then they have another section next to it that all they had done was mechanically thinned it. And then there was a section right next to it that they didn't do any treatment. So when the Bobcat came through, so obviously it was nuked in the one they didn't even do any mitigation. The one that they mechanically thinned was, I think they said about a 40% loss because they didn't get all of the stuff. And then the one that they had done everything, it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that stand in the middle of all this scorched area.
See, that makes sense, and also, it's the same mentality with flooding.
Mhm.
But all this stuff costs a lot of money. But the government sees it's cheaper to spend money on mitigation than,
Oh, yeah.
Well,
and that's, this will help with your insurance.
absolutely.
But my point though is that I am just thrilled with the direction we're going in, because I think you're gonna see tangible,
Well, I think
results.
our example A should be pictures of Palace.
Yeah.
Scorched terror. I mean, you
Yep.
want your, but the absolute best fire
It's insurance
mitigation.
with no insurance.
Absolute best fire mitigation is an overgrazed horse pasture.
Amen to that.
Well,
God
it's
knows
mitigated
where-
down to the yuck, as he made, so.
It's interesting
been
about
my
Pal
mitigation.
States is they started canceling people's insurance
Yes.
5 months prior to this fire. So a lot of people had insurance issues, and to be honest with you, I tried to shop around for insurance for my house, which did burn down in the Dahl fire. The garage didn't, but the home did. So then my insurance premium came and it went up 34% last year. My bill, and so I started shopping around. I went to Key. They only had one company that would even insure me at all. and that was Safeco, and it was $4,000 more than my State Farm policy, that I'm now paying nearly $7,000 a year for.
And we're gonna, that's where we are.
So we're seeing that, you know, this is, I feel like at first it gets expensive, but next year, maybe I don't get a renewal notice at all.
Yeah, now that the expense isn't even an option, there's just no insurance.
Exactly.
Well, I heard that's happening in California, and I heard it on the news that they were leaving, the State Farm has left California.
Yeah,
They have.
You know,
Yeah.
completely, like 18 months ago.
Well, and they say part of it's because the state put a cap on what premiums could be, but it's like, well, I mean, they got a mess, let's put it that way. But they got a mess because they didn't mitigate.
Yep.
And it's not saying that it would have been 100% better, but they didn't do anything.
Yep. Well, and one thing out of the local legislature here in the state that I was seeing, so if it passes, they're gonna be reevaluating and studying how we have been handling fires.
yeah.
And I think part of it is we might see a kind of a push in certain areas where it's let it burn policy now, is the potential to come up in the next probably 4 to 5 years.
To get rid of the fuel,
Yep.
like, almost like a big controlled burn.
Yep, basically.
That's what they did in California.
Then they do that in Yellowstone.
Really had no choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we might start seeing a little bit of that, but you never know too. But that's kind of what they're looking at. And
I was watching that, I thought, well, they should go in and tear down a block in front of that fire.
Right,
Bulldozer.
But when you got 80 and 90 mile an hour winds, it don't
Yeah,
make no
matter.
difference.
You'd have to do it 10 miles in front.
Yeah,
You
well-
may or may not get it done.
And the worst thing is too, or thing that really comes back to me, so back in '06, when I was in college, we had an instructor and he was in there and he was talking about the wildland urban interface. And up
The
until
WUI.
the WUI, yes. And up until that time, his mindset and that kind of old school was, it's like, have you ever seen a fire burn more than 1 or 2 blocks into a subdivision? Like, it's man-made fire break, and yeah, you lose the people on the edges, but the rest of it stays. And now, I mean, just the way the construction is, lightweight materials, non-mitigated, all the factors that combine into one, yeah, you lose entire communities now.
Well, yeah, but especially with a 100 mile an hour wind.
Yeah.
Well, and then, look at that area down there in California, it's all uphill.
Yep.
The fire loves to climb.
Uphill. Yeah, you can never outrun one going uphill.
No,
They shouldn't have been building there.
Nope.
But they've been,
But it's a pretty view.
yes,
Yeah.
it is,
Yep.
It is.
wonderful.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
I don't feel sorry for, I honestly don't when I say.
Oh,
that.
my.
I feel bad for him. I mean, I have something what you're saying too, is,
Now
but.
that we're being recorded, I feel horrible.
Let's all say a prayer for the people.
They'll be showing up at my house with torches.
well, you know, and we joke about it too, but you know, that's how first responders and us deal with it too. Is
Yeah.
we gotta have dark humor because otherwise,
Yeah.
it just eats you alive. All the crap we have to see.
They're
and
simply
deal with.
overwhelmed, there's
And,
no way
yeah.
around it, simply.
Well, and then they cut, like, you know,
I was
they were
thinking they were
saying,
saying they gave away all their surplus fire equipment to Haiti, and I thought, yeah, anyway, I
Yep.
figured, well, we got some of that.
Yeah, we got some of the surplus stuff. And it's in service.
They can buy it back
Yeah, they can find it.
for a lot more than what we paid.
see, that's how I like, that's,
Not my shop.
Yeah.
you just got a star for it.
Thank you. Yeah. We spent 200,000, they can spend 600,000.
There you
That's the
go.
way I look at it.
And as we sit here, and I don't wanna tempt fate, I know, maybe I shouldn't even open my mouth about it. But if we get a fire started about 4 or 5 miles to the north of where the Doll fire started with the same circumstances, we will lose
We'll lose several houses.
500 houses, 400.
300,
Again, that's because of where they built and no mitigation, right?
Yeah.
Well, it'll come across Juniper into the Johnny Cole.
Yeah.
Do you remember on, was it Golding, Where did where did we put those panels up for that doll that that place?
That's on Roland Road off of Hay Cooley.
Yeah, that place is,
Doing
doesn't have a prayer.
No, doesn't have prayer, but many of those houses have no
Yeah.
prayers in them.
Do
And
you
that-
think that that would burn, if it burned 5 miles, would it burn north or south? How would-
If it starts 5 miles north of where the Doll Fire started, so somewhere out by Hogarty Lane,
Yeah,
with the 45, 50 mile an hour wind that it had behind it,
yeah.
it'll burn all the way to
Well,
Forsyth.
But
Yeah.
is it also, doesn't it
Our
create
wind is
wind?
generally coming from the west straight
Yeah.
east.
Okay.
But doesn't a fire actually then create a wind?
Has a potential to, yes.
Because I have felt that, it's like, this is really weird, you know, now the wind is like, well, that's because you got this fire going on. It's-
Well, and what it's doing is it's sucking oxygen.
Yeah, it's,
Suction, sucking oxygen.
So it's sucking air in, goes up and actually creates a thundercloud, a cumulus. And then once it hits the upper wind shear, it usually causes it to collapse, and then that's when you have blowouts.
My dad flew smoke a lot, spotting, and he talked in leading, and anyhow, he talked about being at like 8,000-10,000 feet and seeing fireballs, because you have this superheated material that's coming out of the fire that there's no oxygen for. And it comes up, and when it finally hits the oxygen,
yeah.
it's superheated and it just flashes. He said it looked like AAA. Like
Yep.
walking on AAA.
Hmm.
Crazy stuff. So I hope we don't have that anytime in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I'd like to go 2 more summers without any fires, and we just hope for that.
Why two, Sean? Why not longer?
Well, 2 so really sounds, I'm not being selfish, you know, I don't wanna be getting greedy.
What happens if
that sounds like a made up answer.
I'm so confused.
Gentlemen, have a nice day.
Thanks, Sean.
Did I see that fires typically like jump a highway?
It has, yeah.
Is that typical that it does do it, or is it like a percentage chance depending on wind and other factors?
Yeah, wind and other factors, and what type of fuel is next to it. And if it's light, flashy fuel, so just grasses, generally a highway is a great fire break. If you got certain types of brush, especially like juniper, cedars, pines that are going off next to it, those brands go quite a ways. It's really amazing how far fire can carry or stuff can carry from them. Because when we burned down at the Riverwalk, we were up at the baseball field up here,
Yeah.
and I was getting debris from down there landing on us up at the baseball field.
Ooh.
So, but I mean, it was all out, but it has the potential depending on a lot of factors.
Yep.
So, usually you want your control line needs to be about 1.5 times the flame length. So if you're having flame length that's a foot long, you want, you know, 1.5 feet wide. But then conversely, when you're having pine trees go off and they're doing 80-foot flame lengths, you need 100-foot line, you know, for it to be contained type
Oh,
thing.
wow, that's a good one. I can't believe you're spending $7,000 on insurance.
I was grateful I had a policy. Got them to take
'Cause
reading
I haven't
policy.
felt that yet, but I'm afraid it's gonna be a trend.
Oh,
I-
yes, definitely.
Will be.
This just happened, and my renewal is July. So
I know,
this
I
is
was
just.
wondering with me and car insurance.
Yeah, you've got a good reason for you.
Yeah, I had no claims.
Yeah,
You're wrecking stuff.
that's your own fault.
Actually, I got it.
Does it
cheaper
count
than
if you're
half,
gonna
so-
wait for him when they're there?
That's awesome.
Yeah, but wait till you file a claim. then.
Yeah,
You need to get
hopefully I won't.
a Tesla self-driving car.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
There you go.
I
Well,
can
you can
get
take
the
him
back
to
seat and
CPR.
blame the damn car.
Exactly.
Amen.
I wasn't driving.
Wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
Send the bill to Elon.
So what's happening with the DES?
All right. Well, DES, we got several things going on. So we're working on submitting all our status reports for all the grants. So we got last year's EMPG. It is completely closed out now. We just got the closeout letter, so I'll be sending that to Chris. And then we got the performance report submitted for the Homeland Security grant and for the EMPG. for this year. With the Homeland Security, I'll be submitting for final reimbursement, so we'll be getting that money coming in. And then once that's in, then we can close that grant out. Then we'll be applying for a new Homeland grant here next month. So we can do the west side of the county now. And then once we get those up, then we'll have our capabilities to link all the towers together. So that way we have redundancy in the radio system, paging system.
Right.
Let's see here. What else do you guess? That was our main focus this go around. Working with Cody on vehicle insurance, is that?
Yeah.
He should be sending that stuff over to you guys here. Is that today or next week?
I think his plan was today, but going Cody will probably be next week.
So what's that issue?
It's just our yearly
Check to see what
review.
vehicles
Yeah.
each department has.
Yep.
Like,
Okay, because, you know, at the beginning of the year, we pay this huge premium.
Yep, that's what he's doing, is make sure that,
Okay,
and so I'll get him the list of the vehicles from the fire department that we've gotten rid of, so that should bring some of that
okay,
down.
good.
Yeah,
Um,
updates.
Yep. Fire council side of things, or fire side of things, we are open. A lot of people burn slash piles and that, and we got good weather for that.
Yeah.
So they can get those burned before spring, that would be great. Fire council meeting went pretty well.
Yeah.
So
I
a
heard it was
couple-
like 4 hours. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
well, I mean, Jerry was talking, so
12 minutes. I timed it.
that Bender said that you timed it. Yep. Jerry only talked for 12 minutes.
Well, that's okay.
So-
That's-
That was huge.
Yep. Normally
I
he's
should
what?
have gone here.
Yep.
Yeah, he cut it down to just 12 minutes.
Yep.
I think it's because he was sick, so that was the best thing.
So what we decided through the fire council, we'll get the proposal together for the March fire council meeting, is we're gonna change gears. So instead of going after Millstone's building through the coal board,
Yeah.
we're gonna go for a rescue vehicle for extrication and special rescue vehicle.
Okay,
Because it'll be easier to fund, I think, for the coal board a vehicle than all the regulations and that are required for the building.
okay, so what do we think? So are we looking at like 120 grand to do the building?
284,000 for the building, all the components installed, concrete.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how would we pay for that?
We're gonna pay for that. Our thought is, if the fire council approves it, is we have $721,000 in cash for fire council. So we're going.
720,000?
Mm-hmm.
What, is that in your cap in? Is that?
No, that's in our cash.
It's 2340?
Yes.
All right, I'll check that.
Mm-hmm.
That's where our 4% goes.
Because when we set the budgets and all that, that obviously comes in before the taxes and
Okay.
everything. So we set our fire council budget and allocations to everything based on the cash that we had in July.
Okay,
Well, we didn't take into account the incoming taxes from the levies and the coal proceeds. So we got
well, I'm gonna, so basically though, what you're saying is you'll pay for that building
Yep,
with your, I'm gonna call them excess resources
yes,
to fund your 2340.
yes,
Now, I'll double check that, maybe give you some, but I was just telling Sean, you know, we're gonna be moving money to CAPM accounts.
yep,
And maybe you're already ear tagging some of that to say, I don't care where you put it, this is what we're gonna use it
yep.
to pay for it.
Yep,
Okay.
and that's just it, is, that's what we'd also discussed, is we'll move a bunch into capital improvement funds, you know. We're gonna try and be creative, but it'll be easier for us to just buy it and do it that way, then we don't have to do all the extra studies that are required.
All right, so let's kind of go back to that,
Okay.
because it's really worth flushing out. So you could go to the coal board and say, we'd like $284,000 or, you know,
Yep.
whatever. And they'd say, well, we can't do that because of this, or because of that, because of this resident. You'd have to have all that
Yep.
research. What is this rescue building vehicle you're going for? What do you think that's gonna cost?
I guess,
150?
yeah, between 150 and 194.
What if you were asked them to fund part of the building? Go to two things. Then the county would have skin in the game. I think you'd get something out of them.
Okay.
Just a thought, we
Well,
have a
well-
lot of capital improvement money, not just for you, all the way around, but
Mhm.
I think we've already determined this building is really needed,
Mhm.
and this is about the cheapest we're gonna get it built for.
Mhm.
And it's gonna be functional.
Yep. Yep.
Milestone.
Yes.
I'm just throwing it out there, that, cause, now,
Well,
they may just say no, because we don't have, like, the last cold war, they gave us half what we wanted for the Weir building. We were lucky to get that, they denied certain people, but it was like, we don't have it, you know?
Yep.
But when they've had it, you've seen how quick they've,
Yep. Well, what we could do is, because when we build the building, Tim is gonna do like pylons is what it's gonna be attached to.
Yeah.
And then that way the concrete isn't, we don't have to have the engineered concrete floor and all that. So what we could do then is what we did for Hot Creek, and we put the building up, it was a gravel floor, and then they went to the cold board to, get the, yep. So we can probably do something similar,
Yeah,
You know,
phases,
yeah.
like, isn't the building steel alone $80,000 or something like that?
I'll have to look, but yeah, it's about,
I thought, in my mind, I thought there was a number like $40,000 for the foundations and the concrete work.
Yep.
80, and then there's a labor component to get it
Yep.
built, which, anyway, it doesn't surprise me. How big a building is it?
it's a 60 by 120?
I think so.
Okay, so,
It's 60 by
and
120.
is it kind of tall? Is it-
Yep, tall, 14-foot doors,
That's the whole
Cold
premise.
storage
and,
building,
yep,
basically.
big cold storage building.
Yeah, because it's not gonna have heat or plumbing, any of that. We're gonna-
Well, it
It'll
had
have heat,
heat.
but it won't have,
bathrooms or any of that
No.
stuff. It's, basically classified like we did with the road departments out there, where it's,
Yeah,
Let me put a bug in your ear. What would it take to put a bathroom in there or something? I think you're gonna want water and stuff like that.
I think the plan is to probably have some of the connections there,
Okay.
but it's not gonna be hooked up type thing. And the reason for that is if we do, then it becomes a different classification, and then because of the size,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to put a sprinkler system in it,
Mhm.
and it's gonna basically make it about a $500,000 building.
Okay.
yeah.
so
Let's-
basically a garage is what
But
he
I'm
wants
just
to do.
thinking, man, it's tough to spend $284,000 on a building that's nothing more than a storage shed.
Right.
So,
I think there's some creative ways that we're
Okay.
prepping for the future. Then that way it can be done, but essentially getting it up.
I just wanna do it smartly.
Mhm.
It's kinda like, you know what, we should have put a floor drain in here, or we should have
Yeah.
put, cause once you get that floor in there, I mean, that's it.
Yep.
And, just to do it smartly, so you have, I was just given the same thing to the, it's, we want frugal and not spending money unnecessarily,
Right.
but if you really need something, it does seem a shame to me to have that building and then just have it
Right.
like a big shed.
Yep. No, there's some creative ways that we're using so that we don't have to. It's kind of like the sheriff's impound building that he was talking about.
Yeah. Well,
For all
was-
that extra, all that extra stuff, like made a simple $150,000 building.
Into 600,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the thing there though is the architectural fees and all that, and then the contingencies, and it would just wrap this thing up. But in order to get state money, you had to have it.
Yep.
So, and you're not really doing that here. You're, anyway, just, I think it's an exciting project, it's just,
Yep.
it's a lot.
But the one question that we did have on that is, so I remember a couple of meetings ago, we needed to do that dirt work out there.
Mhm.
And you guys are gonna look into some potential, kind of a little bit of a match fund, potentially to help pay for some of that dirt work. Were you able to track anything
Well,
down?
what did you say that network was worth again?
I don't have it. 17?
17,000?
I don't think that's gonna be an issue.
Okay.
So they did have it done and they paid for it already through the.
Okay.
through
Well,
the-
no, then we can't.
So, but,
You
we'll,
might have to do a little more in the spring, you never know.
right, so we'll just create a claim, bring it up and give it to you guys and then let you guys
We all
know.
have a chuckle over it.
Exactly.
Well, see, to me, that might be capped out. I mean, you know,
Well, there's ways.
Yep. 'Cause
well, but I think, I just might as well just, was your thinking, well, we'd rather that be outside? Well, see, that, to me, that's classic use of capped out.
Right. So our thought was if, you know, again, when you guys were talking, you might have it, if that would just be a general cap imp, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna take Melstone's cap imp that they have, and they're gonna do, so with their heating that they're putting in the building, they're doing that inlaid floor
Oh,
heating.
yeah.
So that way it will dry up the water and all that stuff. So they're gonna use their cap imp for the heating portion, and then that would take up most of that. And then we'll use our fire council cap in to do quite a bit of the building. We'll look at going for the cold board for the concrete portion of the flooring. And then, so we're just kinda,
Well, let us look into that, okay, so you're clear, you're basically, so yeah, you can use CAPM, but don't use our CAPM, because we're already gonna use it for this,
yep, if possible.
if possible.
If it's one of those that doesn't work out and you guys wanna ear tag that somewhere else, we'll make it work, it's just,
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're gonna be doing this budget review thing, and I did not review yours, I reviewed the levy budgets, so I don't know. When you said you had $720,000, I'm like,
oh, trust me, when I,
you know.
when I pulled up, went into the thing and pulled up what the cash is for the accounts and I saw that,
Don't tell
Well,
me.
you know what it is, it's proceeds.
Yep.
Because we got more proceeds than we thought we were gonna get, and like this year was less than the year before, but they're still,
massive.
Astronomical.
Yeah.
and,
Big numbers.
yeah,
Well,
okay.
and the thing is too, and I told them at the fire council, you know, my directive from them was to manage the budgets and make sure that we had money. And so that's been part of why I've been frugal on things and we've been, you know, not as like, oh yeah, go buy that, we're good, or, you know, it's been,
No, yeah, and that's why, hopefully I don't sound that way, but I'm all for, I know we're in good shape, let's put it that way, but I'm not trying to encourage spending for spending's sake.
Right.
But
Yep.
you have some projects
Yep.
that you got going, it'd be nice to be comfortable to finish them,
Yep.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yep.
the cold board, that might be a crapshoot, but honestly, I can't see them turning down 40 grand or something for a part where the county has a 3/4 stake in
right,
building an independent fire hall, but I still would love to see that it could be more than just an empty storage shed.
Yep. and like I said, that's kind of part of the future planning of the building and essentially,
Insulation, heating, you know, I'm thinking of the fire hall you have
Yep.
in Dean Creek.
perfect, thank you.
You know, that's a pretty functional building.
Yeah,
You could have a part of this building that you could have,
yep.
you know,
Well, and I think part of the plan too, like for the interim, so when we get their building up, there's a lot of equipment that's in their current fire hall. They could